So, what did you all think of that Backrooms trailer? I thought it actually looked pretty good. I feel like I and many others have some rightful worries when it comes to turning the Backrooms into a live-action feature film. The charm of the Backrooms is the liminality. It's normally just one person stuck somewhere with no exit. I know the Backrooms series by Kane Pixels does start to expand substantially, with reveals that the Backrooms is actually some top-secret project being researched. When I first was watching the trailer, I became a bit worried when it looked like we were going to have multiple characters. The Backrooms didn't seem to have that liminal horror that it usually does in the shorts. And the big thing was when it showed our supposed main character just wandering in and out of the Backrooms. However, once we got into the found footage portions of the trailer, I started to become sold, and I'm now pretty hyped for the film. I'm sure there are a ton of secret surprises in store for us there. That Exit 8 movie just came out recently, and I need to see that too. But now onto the topic at hand. A different liminal horror series that we have covered before, the Glendale Archives. This is actually the third video on the Glendale Archives, so I'll have links down in the description below for parts 1 and 2, and also a link to the channel so you can check out the series yourself before diving on over here to brave the journey as a team. The Glendale Archives has us following our main character, who if I remember correctly is only named the Subject, as he traverses a world with only him in it. It isn't clear whether or not he was put here on purpose, or slipped into it by accident. But we also know that he is in some kind of weird liminal reality, as we end up seeing that someone on the quote-unquote outside is watching him, and studying him of some sorts. All this being done by the Archivist. Perhaps everyone got pushed into a neighboring dimension except him. Now that wouldn't be fair, would it? So who knows where this latest tape will take us today? But enough yapping. Let's get our last look at society before we head back to isolation in the Glendale Archives.
This looks like some sort of like a colonial building. I don't know, I've been noticing a lot of folks out in the woods. I could feel it on my skin.
He's got me right outside.
I turn to my house into a weapon. The first thing we are met with in this entry is the Subject turning on his camcorder. When it comes to the amount of time that's passed since he has last seen another person, well, according to him, he has lost count. Who knows how long he has been in this isolated reality? We are joining in on his end-of-day recap, and boy does it sound like he had an eventful one at that. For starters, we learn that a Nestor attacked him, but luckily was only able to tear his shirt. We then see the freaky bastard sprint towards us. According to the Subject, the Nestor tried to eat him. I didn't know that was the fate waiting in store if a Nestor got a hold of us. We then learned that he had to run to Target for cleaning supplies, baked cookies, and set up our home with a few honestly impressive traps. He says that something ended up following him back to his house, to which we see what looks like him having a grand old time talking over the radio. Maybe we finally lost it. We're then back to the start of the day, beginning with us waking up early and prepping some cookies. Now that's a good idea. The next segment then has us in the kitchen as he preps cookies and chats with us. Each episode has to have the cooking segment, I suppose. Maybe I'll recreate these. He puts in the peanut butter, then the sugar, and then the egg. While we are mixing the bowl, however, we end up hearing quite the distressing noise coming from off frame.
One sec.
Turns out it was a Nestor standing at our front door. We are awfully calm for a close encounter. However, the dough is done and we begin to lay the cookies out on the sheet, ready to bake later in the night. We learn that the Subject had spotted an area on his map that sparked his curiosity. He says it looks like a clearing with various structures, potentially some sort of facility, and we want to see what's up. We begin to make our way through the woods, but not without immediately running into a Nestor. Thankfully, we quickly make our way to our destination, the facility. This area is certainly strange to say the least. This whole area is a big open field with a bunch of strange structures littered throughout. The first area we investigate looks like this weird pipe/pump structure. I don't know, man. Next, however, is what looks like a tall brick wall. But once we get a closer look, its oddities become much more clear. It looks like the building has been warped somehow. This is kind of our first look at something truly out of the ordinary appearing in this world. Other than the Nestors, of course. But other than that, everything in this world is identical to ours, minus the people, making this weird wavy brick wall one of the most unfamiliar things we have seen so far. If anything, I question how it got so warped. What could have caused this? He tells us that it has now been a couple of weeks since he has been squatting in his current house. He also talks again about the mall he found. I'm guessing the same one we found in one of the previous entries, the one with the big underground area. We are then met with yet another strange structure. A lot of these honestly look very alien-like. This one looks like a big washing machine, yet it's actually this hollow room where these books have been stored. Maybe these are things that also got zapped out of reality like our Subject, and that's why they look so weird. Hell, some of these kind of look like park jungle gym equipment, especially this next one with all the connected boxes. As he begins to walk around some more, he begins to get a little upset over his situation. He has no one to share these cool discoveries with, no one to joke with, so really all he can do is laugh to himself. But he misses being able to laugh with others. The thing he says next, though, is pretty strange, I gotta say. He says that as a joke, he pretended to be his father, like he changed his name to his father's name and dressed like him and whatnot. Alright, the name thing is a little weird, but it's ultimately harmless.
Apparently he started to get really upset when I started to wear his pajamas and sleep in his bed, make copies of his social security card. Then it got he didn't really think that was funny.
Wait, come again? I have quite a few questions here. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he actually tried to steal his dad's identity, but I can't really think of a reason to do that, honestly. Maybe our subject is truly just a strange guy and actually thought of it as all one big joke. As he is telling this weird story, he looks around and sees he is surrounded by these oddly placed wood pillars. He takes a seat and begins to eat these hash browns he found. Where exactly did you find those? We learn from the subject that a lot of the grocery stores in the nearby area still have running power. The generators are still keeping the lights on. We don't necessarily know just how long these grocery stores have been unmanned, so I'm curious if they would actually still be up and running after that long. Perhaps someone is keeping everything in tip-top shape on purpose. After we finish up with our gross hash browns, we begin to head to the nearby target. While on our walk, the subject talks about feeling jumpy lately. He has been noticing a lot of nesters in the woods in the last while. He says they don't really bother him, but one in particular did, and he had to set them ablaze. He discovers yet another big open field with more of these odd structures. He admits that the open space makes him feel a bit safer, much better than being in the woods. We walk through this wooden shelter, almost like a dome house that wasn't finished. We would sit and chill, but the cold weather is getting to us. He reveals that since he doesn't really have a calendar, he has no idea what day or month it is even. He guesses we are mid-December just based on the cold. One of the structures we end up coming across is this tall lookout tower. Now this may come in handy. Once at the top, we look out over the landscape. We point out to the radio tower, allowing us to figure out where our house is from the tower, just over the hills. But the weather isn't getting any warmer, so we begin to head down. We mess around a bit more before being taken to these weird cement blocks. It almost looks like if a kid was playing with building blocks, except much larger. We then look out at this abandoned house, and right beside it is this basketball hoop structure I have never seen before, but it looks crazy.
That was the move that made LeBron cry.
He starts to talk to us once more, saying that this little adventure was definitely needed as his feelings of unease have started to fade. However, the sun begins going down, and since our time management is so terrible, we are now wandering the dark, and that is right when disaster strikes.
I could feel it on my skin, and that's when it struck.
I don't know how we were able to get away with just a torn shirt. However, it sounds like this nester behaved differently than normal. He says that usually they forget quickly who or what they were after. However, not with this one. It kept on his trail. We were met with these haunting photos of the nester responsible. Thankfully, we were able to get some distance between us and the bastard, as shown to us on this map. Now, is this his map, or a map from the outside? We finally make our way to the target. We need cleaning supplies since we got a bit roughed up from the attack. We arrive inside, and sure enough, it's pretty eerie being the only one in a target. We start to shop around, and this whole Target segment is essentially a montage of us walking up and down the aisles of Target, periodically showing off items we are buying as if he's advertising them.
Where's the fucking dinner aisle?
As we leave the Target, we can see the same nester is following us home, so we decide it's time to just lure it to the house so it could be killed in one of the traps. We then get to learn all about these updated traps of his. He shows off a couple firearms that he had gotten a hold of at a nearby store. He has never owned a firearm before, but he considers this to be a necessary situation. He admits that all the weaponry did make him feel a lot safer. He was then able to build, in his own words, a fully automated frontline shooting system that he can control from inside his house. This is literally the ending of Breaking Bad. We follow along as he runs to the local hardware store, and then watch as he begins to put together the device. It's pretty cool, and it really made me believe he was able to build these, because at first I was really asking how your average Joe could just concoct this.
All a nester needs to do is walk in front of the infrared center and boom.
The next trap he shows off is the mirror trap. Apparently the nesters nearby are a bit brain dead and don't see very well, so these mirrors confuse them, causing them to attack the mirror, get cut up by the glass, and then hopefully they just bleed out. The final trap is the sound mat. Essentially, if a nester steps on the doormat out front, it will trigger an alarm from far away to go off. This will lead them to the alarm where he has put a bunch of different clothes around to try and confuse their scent, leading to them just forgetting and wandering off. So now that all the traps are set, we could let our guard down. We put our prepped cookies in the oven and begin our shower. Nothing really happens in this next scene. He's just showering. After the shower though, it's now time for a relaxing bath. And just like the last scene, he's just taking a bath. At some point though, he does reveal some things about nesters that I hadn't known before. He claims you can feel when a nester is near by the way the air changes, and you could feel almost a body tingle. He tries to pretend everything is normal as best he can, but sometimes that puts him at risk of not noticing when nesters are near. Once out of the tub, the conversation carries over to the bathroom sink, where our face care routine begins. We even get more tips on how to deal with nesters. You know, if we ever run into one. Apparently his ability to sense when a nester is nearby is only useful for certain types of nesters. Some of them are slower than others. Some are mostly blind. But he does warn that even then, once within a close radius, they become very quick and capable.
But once you cross their radius, they react fast and without hesitation.
To make matters even worse, even if you were to notice the presence of a nester, it likely means that they have already noticed you, leaving you without many options. Even if you run, it just confirms you as a target.
Running doesn't help. Running only tells them who you are.
The skincare routine continues on, and he begins to talk about the nester that had attacked him. He was amazed in its ability to keep tracking him down. If we remember back, he said that nesters usually forget their target, or what they were after, pretty quickly. So the fact this one took the time to follow him all the way home is cause for concern. Hopefully they aren't getting smarter. However, the self-care session is now over, and it's time for us to enjoy our cookies and play with the radio. He has it rigged to where the radio he has comes out of his antenna. He says that it manages to lure nesters over and then the traps get them. We watch as he hears one get blasted from outside.
Luring nesters towards my house into the traps.
You know, if my theory is true and these are actual people, this scene in reality is a whole lot darker. A nester then appears on his front doorstep, causing the alarm to go off, but then we hear the gun go off and learn he didn't even make it past the frontline system.
That's him. That is him. Well, he's coming in clear. He's got to be right outside.
Mission accomplished. The subject then decides to call it for the night, noting the day as intense yet relaxing in the end before signing off. The credits begin to roll, and the Archivist returns to give us a bit of a debrief at the end. It's mostly a promotion for their website, but it further cements this as a living ARG. But it's clear that her goal is to find out who the subject is, where they are, and how they got there. All questions I, and I can only imagine all of you, have as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that was the latest entry in the Glendale Archives. There wasn't too much that was revealed in this entry, but the world building was certainly there. This definitely felt the most liminal out of all the entries so far. Second place probably going to when we discovered the abandoned mall in a previous episode. But something about that big open field, with all those structures that looked both man-made and alien at the same time, really gave me a sense that this isn't our world. I do still think it's possible that nesters are either humans or just this world's civilization that this guy is impeding on. We learned that some nesters are much smarter than the others, so much so that our subject was shocked when that one was following him home. It's possible this nester decided it's time to get to the bottom of what's going on in this mysterious house being occupied by the mysterious subject. I really have no clue as to where the series could possibly be going even. I wonder if he is going to find some more facilities, maybe find the root cause of how we ended up here. Whether or not our subject has just found themselves in one of the biggest backroom areas imaginable, or he is actually in some parallel world. It would be pretty interesting to see if the subject and Archivist manage to work together somehow to free him. Maybe the Archivist can find a way to communicate to him through radio. I think one of the biggest mysteries actually is how these tapes have been found. If he is recording on his camcorder and putting them on tapes, are they just kind of appearing in our world? Is he leaving them somewhere for someone to maybe find? I feel like there would be quite the time delay here on when we got to view these tapes and when they were actually filmed. Who knows? If we ever managed to bring the poor bastard back into our world, a whole bunch of time could have passed and he's just an old guy. There are so many possible directions for this series to go, and I am excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. However, that'll probably be about it for this week's video. If you haven't already, please be sure to go check out the original series and even the website mentioned to get exclusive entries into the series. But as always, keep on leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord, where we are also working hard in freeing the subject. But if you'll excuse me, I gotta learn how to build my own automated frontline defense system.